Okay, it's recording.
Okay. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. I'm just going to start sharing the screen just so we can make sure that it is working. Can everybody see that? Excellent. So I am Caroline from Zest Health Coaching, and I'm just going to give a little bit of background because I think when I listen to people talk, I think, do you know what? I really want to know about them as well, not just about what they do. Maybe that's just me and I'm nosy, but I do like to know a little bit of their background. So I came into health coaching a couple of years ago. My background is in psychology. I did a psychology degree and I've done some counseling. And I just felt that health coaching just brought that all together. And for me, it was just a really good fit because it just brings the behavior, the practical side of health coaching. It brings it all together. So the reason I even got into psychology, I was always interested in behavior. But I think also from a young age, I suppose when I was 15, 16, I developed an eating disorder. And that carried on for 30 years. And thankfully now I'm fully recovered, but it took 30 years to get there. So I've seen quite a lot in the eating disorders world. I've seen what damage it can do. I've felt myself what damage it can do. And it wasn't for me, it wasn't actually about food, which some people might be surprised at. Some people might know that eating disorders often are not about the food. Obviously, the food is an issue, but that's just a symptom. For me, it was about control. I lived abroad all my life. And at 16, my parents wanted me to come to England to get a bit of an English education before going to university. And so they sent me to boarding school in England. And so I arrived, never having been at school here before. My English wasn't as it is now. And I was just lost, completely lost. And everything was out of control. And it was a decision. I thought, one thing I can control here is my food. That was the one thing I felt in control of. And that's how it started. And over the years, there were times when it was okay. I'd say I was a functioning anorexic. Other times of stress, I used it to its fullest and really went for it. And it was my best friend. And as I was recovering, it was scary because I didn't know who I'd be without the anorexia because it had been so much part of me all of my adult life. But I can say, hand on heart, that life without an eating disorder is so much better. And I feel that with my health coaching, I can also help people, not necessarily with eating disorders, but it's just given me an awareness of issues people have. And it's not simple. You know, if people want to lose weight, it's not as simple as saying, just don't eat it. There is so much involved, so much involved. And so I hope that it's given me an understanding and some empathy towards people. And I also hope I do some work, I do some speaking in eating disorder sort of forums. And I can, tell people that, it affected my relationships, it affected my social life. So when I talk to young people, I just hope that I can get through to them how fantastic it is if you can get over it quicker and not live with it for 30 years like I did. So that's my background. That's why I think I'm so interested in the health world. I'm married, have been for nearly 31 years. Have 3 children, 28-year-old and twins of 26, nearly 27. And so that is me. So my business is Zest Health Coaching. And what I thought would be really interesting today is that, as I was saying to Liz, is it Liz? In Bath? Sorry, no, not Liz. Yes, sorry. That we're hearing so much about the gut now and the importance of feeding your gut properly. And I'm not a nutritionist. I just want to put that on the table. I am not a nutritionist. I don't claim to be, but I know quite a lot about food. But the importance of the gut and feeding the gut is so much more than just putting the right food inside you, because it is about putting the right food inside you, because the gut is like a second brain and it helps us function. And there's these messages going backwards and forwards from the gut to the brain all the time. So if we can put the proper food in our gut, it's then going to help us perform in our work, in our social life, in everything that would just help us be our optimum selves. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, about how can we get the right food inside us. You know, for so many people, we've given ourselves rules about food. We've been on diets, we've been off diets, they've worked, they haven't worked. So we've lost a sense of what we actually should be putting inside ourselves and how we should be feeding ourselves to the best. And we don't need Fitness Pal. Our brain is our Fitness Pal. It's our hypothalamus in there that is telling us what we need to eat. Just like when your bladder is full, you know that's a sign to go to the loo. When your mouth is dry, you know that's a sign to drink. What we've lost, I think, is those signals to tell us to eat, because a lot of people have become frightened of that. And so they're going by all these set rules. So there's this sort of philosophy now called intuitive eating, which some of you may have heard of. And I'm not saying that you have to live by it step by step, but I think it's a good framework to start on to really understand how to become more in tune with your body. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. So, as I said, the gut is more than just where food goes. And it's a whole system with the brain. It influences so much of us. And it's home to a second nervous system. It's constantly communicating with your brain, sending messages backwards and forwards. And we know, I think a lot of us, that it influences the hormone production, things like all the ghrelin, leptin, all of this, hunger hormones, immune system, appetite, digestion, metabolism. And what some people aren't so aware of is it affects behavior, mood, and the stress responses. So it really is everything. It's so important to look after your gut. The secretion of brain chemicals like cortisol, which is the stress hormone, serotonin, which is a sort of relaxing hormone. And again, a lot of us will realize that if you have an unbalanced gut, you might get tummy ache, you might feel bloated, you might have too much wind. But there's also what we think of as the sort of brain things like anxiety and depression that actually can be really affected by what we put in our body and goes into our gut. So the gut microbiome is what I call the sort of mixture of what's going on in there in simple terms. And one of the biggest influences is diet. So how can we change how we eat and be more aware of what we're putting in our body and listening really to what our body needs? So that's where intuitive eating comes in. So what is intuitive eating? It's really trusting your inner body wisdom. And it's getting rid of that diet mentality that so many people, even if you're not on a diet, so many people actually live with the diet mentality. And as I go through these principles, it'd be interesting if you just question, even if you're not on a diet, do I live by those principles? Are there any rules I'm living by? Maybe not consciously. And as I go through this, please feel free to ask any questions. You know, you can either put them in the chat and hopefully Sam will see them and I can answer anything at the end, or, you know, through the talk, I'm really happy to answer any questions you have if you're burning to ask anything or, you know, question what I'm saying. So the first principle of intuitive eating is to reject the diet mentality. And so many diets are out there, but I can tell you categorically diets don't work. And some of you might say, but yeah, I went on a diet and it worked. Well, yes, but did that weight loss stay? Was it maintained? And there is a small percentage of people where diets do work, but the majority, 98%, people will go back to their normal way of eating and they'll gain the weight back on plus more. And that's not something I'm making up. That is a known fact. And, you know, it's annoying for people because they think, well, if I go on a diet, I can lose weight. Well, yes, you can, but it's not really, it's listening to external signals. And, you know, how can a company, an organization, naming no names, how can they tell you how much you should eat, when you should eat it, what time you should eat it? Because every body is different. And this is what I hope will come out of today, is that you're going to start listening more to your body. And, you know, in the evenings, I often eat a lot more than my husband. I'm 5'2", he's 6'2". Now you think he needs a lot more than me. He's double my weight practically. Well, often in the evenings, I eat a lot more than him, but that's fine because I'm listening to my body and that's what I need. I need more food than him in the evening, and I don't have a problem with that. So diets are set up for failure. The second thing is honor your hunger. And by that, I mean, listen to when you're hungry, listen to what hungry means for you. And we all have different signals in our body. And I have a really strange one that if I get too hungry, I get all sort of fuzzy by my knees, which is really strange. But I know for me, that means, okay, you really need to eat now. And with my clients, I use a hunger and fullness scale. And a lot of my clients come to me and say, but I don't know what it feels like to be hungry, because they've lived by rules for so long that they've forgotten to listen to their own body. So honoring your hunger means really recognizing when you're hungry. What does that mean? Is it a rumbling stomach? Is that the first sign? Is it a headache coming on? Is it feeling a bit shaky? And a lot of people get sort of down their arms and hands, they just feel a bit sort of shaky and foggy brained. So everyone is different. So learn what hunger means to you. And when I work with clients, I do, you know, we learn when to start eating, when to start thinking about food. And it's a process, but it doesn't take long. It really doesn't take long. I had a client a while ago. She was adamant she didn't know what hungry felt like. She said, I've never felt hungry. So I gave her some exercises to do that week. And she came back the following week so excited. She said, I actually felt hungry for the first time in my life. And that really helped her with everything, just to recognize that hunger. So it's a normal biological process. It's nothing to be frightened of. Our body is telling us when we need to eat. And I think a lot of us think that if we're hungry, we're greedy, or if we're hungry, it means we shouldn't be eating. And it's all got a bit confused in our head as to what hunger means. But hunger is the body telling us we need to fuel ourselves, fuel our brain so that we can function, so that we can perform. And that picture I'm quite proud of, actually, because that's my granola. It's my homemade granola. And if anybody wants the recipe, more than happy to share it. It is to die for. So that's just an aside. The third principle is to make peace with food. Food is not good and bad. A donut is not bad. An apple is not good. Food is food. So let's stop with the labeling. We can eat anything. We can have a piece of cake. It's not bad. It really is about balance. And that's, again, what I try and teach people. It's about balance. And if you can come to a place of balance, then I think you're doing pretty well and your body is going to thank you for it. So just to reiterate, food is neutral. And that is something that, a mindset that is very hard to shift. I mean, how many times have we said, oh, I was so naughty yesterday, I had such and such. I mean, I think we all do it, don't we? And I find myself doing it and I have to check myself and think, no, that's really not true. The next one is to challenge the food police. And what I mean by that is challenge the rules you've made for yourself to make you feel bad. And everybody has different rules, whether it's I can't eat till midday, or I can't eat carbs at night, or I have to have fruit one day a week, whatever it is. whatever these rules are you've set up for yourself, maybe they work for whatever you might want to be doing at that time. Maybe they don't. I'm not saying they're wrong, but I'm just saying challenge them, question them, and really ask why it is you've made those rules up. And I think for me particularly, that was something I really had to do, because obviously with an eating disorder, I had so many rules, and most of them I had to get rid of because they weren't serving a purpose, or they weren't serving the right purpose. So just maybe this week, as you're eating, as you're going about your day, as you're just, doing your normal behavior, maybe question it, and it will be quite interesting. And maybe you're fine, which is great, but maybe there are certain rules that you think, well, where did that come from? And sometimes it's from our childhood, things our parents said to us, or society, or culture, maybe a certain religion. And it's just good to ask yourself sometimes why you're doing what you're doing. So the satisfaction factor it's more than about fullness. So although I work a lot with hunger and fullness with my clients, and the scale goes from 0, which is where you're starving, 10, which is like Christmas Day fullness, where you can hardly move. There's also something called satisfaction. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but sometimes you eat something and you're full, but you're still looking for something else to just sort of finish off that meal, or you just don't quite know why, but you're not quite, it hasn't hit the spot what you've eaten. And, I used to eat loads of salad. I could eat, but massive. I'm not talking just a little bowl. I'm talking big serving size bowlfuls of salad, because it filled me up. But it didn't satisfy me, because salad obviously being very high water content, I would feel very full for a short amount of time, and then I'd be starving hungry again, because I hadn't given myself any nutrients. There was no protein. There were no, no fats in there to fill me up. So really be aware of that difference. And if you do finish a meal and you're full but not satisfied, then it's a good idea to look at what you've eaten. And sometimes writing it down helps, and just think, okay, was there a balance there? Because I'm sorry if I'm preaching to the converted, but, protein is essential in every meal. It really is. And if you haven't had protein in a meal, that could be the reason that you're not feeling satisfied. And carbs, I feel, is a very personal thing. Of course, we all need carbs, but the amount you need varies from person to person. It depends on your activity levels. It depends on so much. So I need carbs at night. That's just me. Some people don't. So it's really getting to know, at the end of a meal, just say, am I satisfied? And another word I love is, which I didn't like to start with, actually, I thought, oh, that's a bit sort of woohoo. Are you nourished? And I use that a lot now. I ask myself, am I nourished? And I really like that, because that's a sense of kindness to yourself. I feel nourishing is a really kind word to use. So when you're talking about nourishing, you're talking about giving yourself all that goodness and feeding yourself, giving your body, putting into your gut all these good foods that are then going to be used properly and feed your brain. So that's about the satisfaction factor. Then, as I said before, the fullness is really being aware of when you're getting too full. And so you start eating, I would say, if I have a scale of 0 to 10, 0 is you could eat a horse, 10 is you can hardly move. I suggest that people start eating at about a 3. So they're hungry, they're going to enjoy their meal, but they're not so hungry that they're going to make bad choices. Because I think we've all done that, haven't we? We've been out, busy all day, haven't had time to eat. You get home, you open the fridge and you just inhale, because you can't do anything else. You are starving. You're not, your brain, if you notice, your brain cannot make those choices. It can't make sensible choices when you are so hungry. And likewise, the fullness, I suggest that you stop at about a 7. So you're comfortably full, you're satisfied as well. That's important, but you're not uncomfortable. Now, if you go out to a restaurant, if you go to a party, if you're celebrating, you might well go to an 8, which is fine, but be aware of it. And maybe don't do that every day, because that's not actually a comfortable feeling. But of course, you go out to supper, you don't need pudding, but you want pudding, have it. But you're doing it what I call mindfully. You're being conscious of how you're feeling. And also remember that it does take 20 minutes to digest. So you won't have registered you're full until 20 minutes later. So often what I'll do is I'll have my supper or have a meal. And sometimes I think, oh, I'm not sure if I've had enough there, but I'll wait 20 minutes. And it's amazing how often I think, do you know what, I'm fine. I don't need anything else. Sometimes I won't, and I'll need a snack. But often if you wait 20 minutes, then everything has registered, everything's worked properly in your body to tell you you've had enough to eat. So feel your fullness. Now, we all, I think, can say we have used food to cope with emotions. And that is totally normal. I do it to this day. But the important thing here is to make sure that you also have other ways of dealing with these emotions, and you're aware of what you're doing, and it doesn't get out of control. So, for example, and one of my sons is in New Zealand, we've been very worried about him. If I have a call with him and I put the phone down and I'm upset, I'm worried, I might go and get a square of chocolate. I know exactly why I'm doing it. And it's fine. There's no harm, because I also will then talk to my husband about how we're feeling. I'll talk to friends. I'll have another outlet. I won't just be using food to cope with that emotion and burying it. So don't beat yourself up if you find yourself going for that ice cream or going for the chocolate or whatever your habits are. Maybe ask yourself, are they really helpful? Am I dealing with this in the best way possible? And make sure that you have actually got other ways of dealing with your emotions, because when you're just relying on food, that's when it becomes unhealthy and it won't be productive or won't serve you really in doing that. So notice it, be kind, and make sure you're finding other ways of dealing with the emotions as well. Now, respecting your body is a difficult one, because people say to me, well, do I have to love my body? No, I don't think you do. There are the self-love coaches, the love your body movements. It's more, I feel, about acknowledging you have got a body, what it does, being really happy and grateful for that. And if you love your body, fantastic. If you can look in the mirror and say, wow, I love my body, that's great. I find that a struggle. It's not that I don't like my body, but I just find it hard to look in the mirror and say, I love you. That's just me. But I can really be grateful for my body, especially having been through an eating disorder. I did so much damage to myself. I caused osteoporosis, which I can never put right, but I can now stop it getting worse. And so what I do to my body is so important. And you can probably tell I'm really passionate about this, because I know what damage you can do to your body by mistreating it. So I'm really grateful for what my body can do for me. I'm grateful that I've got 2 legs, 2 arms, and it's all very well to say, oh, there are people worse off than me and I should be grateful. But it's really deep down knowing that you are truly respecting your body. And to respect your body, you need to feed it properly. If you're abusing it, you're not respecting your body. It's not going to thank you, like mine didn't. Mine hasn't. And so care for your body physically and mentally. Put the food in. Look after your emotions as well. Talk to people. Mental health is much more openly talked about now, but it is so important, talking to people, whether it's a professional, whether it's a friend. It's so so important for our overall health. So, exercises I do with my clients can be what I like about myself. And they have to draw on a piece of paper. They have to write down every day something that they like about themselves. And they hate doing this exercise. But at the end of the day, I say, if you write one thing every day that you like about yourself, whether it's physical or your personality, just think in a year, you'll have 365 things. So on those days you feel really rubbish about yourself, you can look at that piece of paper and say, well, actually, do you know, I'm not so bad. So that can be a really helpful little tool to have. Now, I've put movement because it's really what a lot of people call exercise. But I think exercise can have such punishing connotations, especially if you're not used to it. You think, oh, I've got to go to the gym. I've got to burn those calories. Well, by movement, I mean moving your body in a way you love. There are so many things out there we can do. You can go on a walk, you can play tennis, you can, whether netball's your thing, running, it might be the gym, but find what's right for you, because there's no doubt moving is important for us. It really is. But it's about doing what you love. If you hate the gym and you tell yourself, right, I need to go to the gym 3 times a week from now on, you're not going to do it. You're not going to maintain it because you hate it. And even if you do maintain it, you'll be miserable. So find something you love doing. I love playing tennis. And for me, that's sociable. I see my friends. I love doing that. I love going out for walks, but not when it's pouring with rain. That just doesn't do it for me. So some people it does. So find what's right for you. And moving every day, if you can, is great. I don't mean burning 1,000 calories every day. Even if it's just at lunchtime, go out for a walk. Just get some fresh air. Just find what is right for you. And finally, what they call in intuitive eating nutrition is gentle nutrition. And they call it that because it is very anti-diet. And like I said before, it's about nourishing yourself. And I think Liz said you were a dietitian. Are you a nutritionist or so this is all very basic things for you, but if you need to see a nutritionist, then go and see a nutritionist. If you really don't know what is right and what is a balanced diet and what is healthy, without becoming, nutritionists nowadays, they're not going to put you on a diet. They're going to look at what is right for your body and teach you about what foods do, like in the picture there, salmon, the oily fish, how important that is, the omega-3, omega-6 fatty acids, all of those things that are going to feed our brain that we need to be aware of. So that's all very well, you might say, but what's the point of all this? What's the point of going for this intuitive eating and listening to myself? So there are a lot of benefits. There are masses of benefits. So I'm just going to go through a few of them just to give you an idea of why you should maybe start thinking about this and looking at the way you eat in a different way. So the first one is you recognize what hunger feels like. And as I said, so many of my clients don't actually know what it is to be hungry. And that's the starting point, really, is knowing what it feels like to be hungry. And then you can make your choices based on that. So that really is one of the big benefits. If you've been on diets or had certain rules for yourself for all your adult life, you actually might not know what you like and dislike because the rules are so set that you've told yourself you like things and don't like other things. For me, one of my rules was we have to eat salad the whole time. Well, I do quite like salad, but I don't like it as much as I thought I did. So likewise, the other way around, you've cut out loads of different food groups because you think they're bad for you. And so in fact, you've told yourself you don't like them. Well, really, try them. You might love them and you might let them back into your diet in a healthy, balanced way. And obviously, when we've had so many rules, there's going to be a lot of guilt surrounding food. and you tell yourself you're bad for eating certain things. You've been, how many of you say, oh, I've been so good today, I'm going to let myself have a treat. This good and bad, that language, I really try and get rid of that, because there's no point in it really, is there? Food is food, and food is so delicious, and there's so much amazing stuff out there we can eat, and it's so good for us. It's like I said, it nourishes us. So why would you want to have any guilt surrounding what you're eating? And also, by listening to your body more, listening to your needs, you're going to notice how certain foods make you feel, and which foods are energy giving, which foods take energy away. And it's only once you start listening, and some people hate that phrase, listening to your body. They say, what does that mean? But once you start really noticing the reactions that you get from certain foods, then you can really decide what makes you feel good. So for me, if I have chocolate brownie mixture, it's extraordinary. If I'm making chocolate brownies, I have some of the mixture, I get an instant headache, and I mean instant. And I'm assuming it's that high sugar content is giving me that. But it doesn't necessarily stop me having a spoonful of brownie mixture, but I know I'm going to get a headache from that. And likewise with alcohol, actually, I can't tolerate alcohol because it gives me a headache straight away, instant, whether it's the chemicals in it, but it's noticing how you feel. And I know if I have a really nourishing meal, I feel sustained the rest of the day, until my next meal. I feel energetic, I feel good, I feel on the ball, I don't have that horrible brain fog. So I can now really notice how I feel after certain foods. And if you're eating to nourish yourself, that's then going to stabilize your blood sugar levels. And by stabilizing your sugar levels, you're not going to have cravings. So because you're not getting that continual up and down, the spike from the sugar, the dip, when you're eating foods that aren't so helpful. So when you have less cravings, you've stabilized your sugar levels, you're going to have a lot more energy to do what you want to do. And also you're going to have increased self-confidence, because you're actually going to trust yourself. When you're looking outside for rules and for diets and for certain, you're looking outside to be told what to do for yourself, you lose confidence in your ability to read yourself and to listen to yourself. So really by listening to your gut, like we said, by being intuitive, you're going to gain that self-confidence and really know what you want and trust that. And also, if you've been on diets for so long, you become very rigid in your thinking. And it goes beyond food. I really believe it goes beyond just the food. And this is what I'm trying to get across here. It's not just about the food you're eating. It's about how it affects everything you do. It really does. And it can affect your whole life. I became more flexible in that I would change plans at the last minute when I recovered from my eating disorder. Before that, I was so rigid in everything I did. They do say the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And it's so true. I was so rigid in my eating. And that actually made me rigid in everything. And sadly, it made me very controlling as well of what my children were doing. And my husband once said to me, he said, you've got to be careful here. Just as they were coming into their teenage years, he said, if you carry on like this, being so controlling, you're going to lose your children, your relationship with them. And thank goodness I listened to him, because I did make changes and we've got a great relationship now. But it can really affect everything in your life. So by losing those rules, you can actually do so much in the rest of your life. And I suppose my example before on relationships, it really can improve relationships. It can, and you don't have to have an eating disorder for this to be relevant to you. You don't even have to have disordered eating. It's just looking at how you do eat and how that makes you feel. And like I said, with the emotions, coping with emotions with kindness, it makes you look for other ways of coping with issues you might have. So for me, my one coping mechanism was food. That was how I dealt with any difficult situation. And it was comforting. I knew I had that there. Always at the back of my mind was, if anything goes wrong, whether it was in a relationship, whether I remember once with a friend, we had a difficult conversation. I do remember thinking, well, it's okay because I can go home and starve myself. And that'll make me feel better again and feel more in control. And at the time, it seemed great. That seemed like a really great way of dealing with things, but clearly it wasn't. So by being more intuitive, by being more aware, you do find other ways of coping and dealing with situations. And this goes back to the sugar levels and the stopping cravings and nourishing yourself. Your mood will be so much better. It really will. Trust me. It's amazing. You know, I think we all know, don't we? We've had that experience. If we skip breakfast by mistake, or if we eat on the run and we haven't made the best choice, not through our own fault sometimes. You know, sometimes you're out and there's only access to something you wouldn't normally choose. But actually, you don't feel great about it. One, you don't feel great because of the choice you made, but actually your body isn't thanking you for it. And your body notices what's gone in it. And the way you perform after that really will be affected. And most of all, you develop this new sense of awareness, which can be really exciting and really liberating and freeing, I think, for a lot of people to realize they don't need to live by all these rules they've set for themselves. And that by feeding themselves good, nourishing food, they actually are doing so much more than just putting that food in there. They are affecting, their whole life is going to be affected by it. Their whole life, their relationships, their sense of well-being, their old age, really. You're investing in how you're going to be later on. Like I said, I have messed my bones up. There's nothing I can do about that to put it right, but I can now stop making it worse. And so I think it's the greatest gift you can give yourself is to listen to your gut, listen to that intuition, listen to what your body is begging you for, and go with that, and you will get the results that you need. So that is it. I really hope that's been helpful and has just shown you really how you can just make a start on becoming a little bit more aware of what your body's telling you. So I don't know if you want to unmute or if people want to make any comments or have any questions. And those are my details there. Obviously, if you don't want to say anything now, you can contact me. There's my email on my website. But, do feel free to get in touch if there's anything more you want to chat about.
Thank you, Caroline. That was really, really interesting.